Yeah, as I was saying, this is my third session. I've marked most of the scripts already. So probably I'll have a deeper insight of challenges that students face. Okay, but before we go into this lecture test, okay, probably I would like to enlist all your help. Okay, number one, okay, I would like you to type out, okay, what is one of the biggest challenge that you encounter. Okay, so I can try to better cater to all your needs. Okay, so the next thing is remember to prepare a green pen. Okay, we'll be doing corrections in a short while. Okay, so help me, okay, by typing out what is one of your biggest challenge that you face in this lecture test. Some of the common ones okay, are time management. Yeah, okay, I'm not sure whether you have experienced that, okay, but you can also use that as well. Okay, so let me narrate. If you like to put it on the group chat without DM is better, so I don't need to narrate. Yeah, so but anyway, okay, better explaining process of text, evaluation for last question. See, time management and essay question is the same, huh? Yeah, you cannot finish the essay question because of time management. And what else? Okay, so let me take a quick look again. So far, I would like to see the passing rate. I think so far the passing rate is 20%. Okay, 20% of the people pass. not to scare all of you, okay, but just giving you some statistics. I hope, okay, after this class when I grade all your scripts, you guys can lift up the passing rate. Right? Not sure about part C. Okay, so if you have any more challenges, continue to type it out. Okay, I'll pick it from the chat. So let's keep this conversation two ways. Okay, so diii also, part C and part diii. Okay, I'm surprised no one brought up a part 2. Surprised, but anyway. The part 2, part C. I'm surprised nobody brought a part 2, but I'm going to circle this. Okay, I'm going to illustrate why is that going to be a problem. Alright, okay, so I'm going to kickstart with the analysis part. I'm going to attach, okay, the answer key, okay, right before I end today's session. Okay, so stay tuned for the answer key. Don't run away first. Alright, clear? And remember to do your corrections, okay, if you didn't manage to catch up with what I've covered down here. Okay, so with this, okay, we will kickstart. I want you all to focus, okay, for time management. Okay, if you manage to type out time management as the issue, I want you guys to focus on your short answer question. Okay, what is your response for each of the short answer question? Is it exceedingly long? Okay, when you look at the answer key in a short while. Okay, and I want you guys to learn to cut off some of the excess, okay, that you see there is not in the that's not shown in the answer key. Okay, another thing that about time management that a lot of students face is repeated diagrams, okay, especially for D1 and D3. Okay, so I want you all to check, okay, whether you have drawn two separate diagrams for D1 and D3. There's no need, okay, because later on I will show you that we can combine, okay, the diagram. Okay, so if you have brought up concepts, okay, not sure about part C, D, part 2, okay, so all these are conceptual questions. So later on I'll be asking you guys, okay, on what are the concepts that are tested for each question. So every question will have one or two concepts embedded inside. Okay, so you have to be really pinpoint, okay, and tell me what are the concepts. And we'll use this framework or use this approach, okay, for your case studies in the upcoming school exam. Okay, you have to ask yourself what is being tested. Okay, if not, it'll be rubbish in and rubbish out. Huh? Okay, so with that, okay, let's kickstart. A part 1 and A part 2, I'll be going through I'll be going through the questions in different parts. Okay, so A1, A2, then after that I'll move on. Okay, so let's look at A1 and A2 first. Okay, describe the trend of sugar prices from 06 to 10. right? So for this question, I do not foresee a big problem. Most of the students were able to illustrate this. Okay, so most of the students get full credit for that. All right, so we can see that they are generally increasing. Okay, and for your anomaly, you will want to state that, okay, sharp rise, or okay, there's a reverse, okay, or rather there is a fall in price, okay, for your anomaly. So this is quite straightforward. Okay, anyone has any questions for part A1? Okay, so this is not a big issue. Okay, if not, okay, there's also another alternative. You can consider this. Okay, you can talk about peak. Okay, the sugar price has peaked. All right. So sharp 4. Someone asked, can I use sharp 4 instead? Okay, remember, okay, the general trend is generally increasing. So if you want to use rate of change, it has to be consistent with the general trend. That's why sharp rise is used to contrast that. It's used to contrast that between this time period, there's a sharp rise. Okay, there is no need to bring in sharp 4. Okay, because it's not leveraging on the existing general trend. Okay, so generally a 4 is sufficient. If you put sharp 4, you won't get penalized lah. You won't get penalized. Just that, okay, there is not much. The word sharp here has not much meaning behind it. Huh? Yeah, I hope I've addressed the concern. Okay, so if there are any more response that you would like to try, okay, you can type it out on the chat. Okay, I'll pick it up and I will address, okay, whether is it viable. Okay, generally increasing. Okay, sharp rise or sharp fall. Okay, make sure you state the time period though. Okay, especially for your anomaly. Yeah. So I don't think this is a huge concern. Okay, the concern is A part 2. Explain whether there's a stable relationship between stock level and price of sugar. Right? So there are two things to look out for. Stable relationship. Okay, and you can actually see that. Okay, we have stock level and price of sugar. Maybe I'll change the color to maybe blue. Okay, so I'm going to quiz you, or please type it out. Okay, what concept do you think is tested for stable relationship? What's behind stable relationship? What do you think the question is asking? Obviously, okay, I can tell you that it's not testing you on stable and unstable. Yeah, there's a more precise term for that. And you realize for case, nope, okay, not PES. Stable relationship-based questions. Okay, what are we looking out for relationship-based questions? So the hint is to look out for the one that I've highlighted in blue. Okay, so you can see that stock level and price of sugar, okay, they are variables, right? So how are these two variables going to be related? Yes, actually kind of get it. Yeah, so it's the second sentence that you type out. Okay, inverse and direct relationship. Alright, so don't get fooled by this question. The question is not asking or concerned about stable or unstable. The question requires you to identify direct and inverse relationship. Okay, or you want to put positive, inversely proportional, sure. Okay, so if you use stable and unstable, you won't get a credit. So this is the first concept tested. Okay, please pen this down, especially okay if you're not so sure about relationship-based question. Okay, we are concerned about direct, positive, or inverse, negative. So this is a 4-mark question. Okay, so there has to be two sides. Okay, so you can actually see it from the extract that, okay, generally increasing, okay, and your stock level is generally falling, okay, from 07 to 10, okay, 06 to 07 there's an increase. All right, so later on, okay, we'll piece all this puzzle up, Okay, and we want to illustrate why is there a direct or why is there an inverse relationship. So this is the part that a lot of students did not get. Okay, so the first part is you have to get direct or inverse right. Then you have to explain why, okay, is there a direct or why is there an inverse relationship. Okay, so I want you all to focus on the answer key. Okay, note that this is a thesis and antithesis. Okay, so you have a direct and inverse. Okay, so we can look at the inverse relationship first. Okay, inverse relationship, we can see that okay, your price of sugar goes up, okay, but your stock level generally falls. Okay, so you have to identify the year. Important. In inverse relationship is generally observed between 07 and 10. So how can we explain that? Okay, so remember, it goes back to what framework we want to use. Okay, especially when you see price of sugar, stock. Stock means quantity, right? Okay, or you can infer this as quantity. Okay, the most likely candidate to explain the primary and the secondary relationship would be your Egypt and wet pigs. Right, so let me repeat. Okay, the framework that we'll be adopting is demand and supply. Okay, so feel free to use any demand or supply factors here that can justify the inverse or the direct relationship, which I'm going to show you later. So this is just an illustration. Okay, we can see that there's growing world population. Okay, so this will cause a shortage of your sugar or your stock level, right? Okay, and upward pressure on price. Okay, because people are consuming more sugar. Okay, so you can see that this is the simplified price adjustment process address. Okay, why is there a fall in your stock level and why is there a upward adjustment or upward pressure on price? Okay, concept is demand and supply. So far, everyone, so good. Okay, understand how the questions are actually phrased. Yeah. So the next part we want to look out for is direct relationship. You can see that between 06 and 07, okay, both sugar prices and closing stocks of sugar in million tons actually increases, right? So remember to identify the relationship. If you tell me both increases, it does not explain the relationship. Okay, so I'm looking out for direct or positive relationship. Okay, if you get this wrong here, okay, it is better than getting it wrong in exam. So I want you all to learn from your mistakes. And how are we going to justify this? Okay, so I want you all to observe what framework was adopted here. Okay, so in this illustration, okay, we have chosen wet pigs. Okay, so we can see that the alphabet E is actually identified. So this is expectation. So how can we play around with this? Okay, so you can see that when price increase between 06 and 07, okay, producers in anticipation of future price growth, what would they do? Okay, they may hold on to more stocks and they would like to sell in the future. Okay, so this is how we play around with a supply factor or a wet pigs factor here. Okay, to justify the direct relationship. So such questions are not common. Okay, but the framework that we adopt is pretty straightforward. Okay, so once you have exposed yourself to relationship-based questions, you shouldn't get this wrong in the future when you see that. Okay, so be exceptionally crucial about relationship-based question. Okay, especially two variables. Okay, you have to address direct or inverse directly. So with this, okay, I am going to move on to question B. Okay, nobody brought up question B as a concern. Okay, so let me quickly list some of the issues that I've seen in question B, okay, from actually grading some of the earlier scripts. So first of all, okay, the question necessitated factors, right? How many factors do we need? Type it out. Okay, so I start to see that people are typing out two factors. Okay, someone mentioned one demand and one supply. Great. Wow, everyone types out the same thing. But when I was reviewing the script, okay, I often see that students are factor spamming. Okay, what do we mean by factor spamming? Look out for your student record, okay, at the remarks that I've written to you. If you realize that I've mentioned factor spamming, it means that you are scattering all your answer. Okay, meaning to say if you talk about Egypt demand factor, you probably list a few. Okay, so the power of singularity is very important. Okay, pick one of the alphabets, okay, for Egypt and one of the alphabet for web pigs. So this is a possible approach. Okay, one demand factor, you can select any alphabets here. Okay, one supply factor, you can select any alphabets here. Okay, but not all. And the next question you can actually, the next key phrase that you actually see is a rise in food prices. Right? So when we have rise in food prices, okay, this can only be satisfied with a increase in demand or a fall in supply. I hope you guys identify this. This is not difficult. Most of the students get this right. All right? So there's a good reason why I always tell my students to look at the questions first, because we don't really need the extract to deduce, okay, to deduce the answer, or rather, we only utilize the extract to support, okay, what we have deduced from the concepts that are tested. That's why you always look from back to the front. Yeah. Okay. So since you know that you're supposed to look out for a demand factor and a supply factor, then we proceed on to look out for the extract. Okay. So for this question, you realize that there are multiple supply factors mentioned. As for demand, they were not specific. Okay, they only bring in increasing demand. I hope you guys identify that, right? So for this question, I would accept students who bring in two supply factors. Okay, because this actually shows that you are utilizing the case material. Okay, but okay, generally as a rule of thumb, always diversify, right? Show that scope, one demand and one supply. So I concur with Nat. Okay, one demand and one supply. Okay, but for this question, there's an exception. Okay, because the demand factor is kind of vague. Okay, so you can consider two supply factors. Clear? Is everyone clear on that? So now I want you all to type out, okay, what is one supply factor that you have identified. Type it out. Okay, and I want you to attach the alphabet of web pigs. Which alphabet you are going to use. So this is the catch. Okay, a lot of students can tell me the factor, but they can't relate to the alphabet. Okay, price of related good, crop problems, okay, weather. All right. Okay, so it looks generally okay. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly hop into the answer. Okay, let's go through the demand factor here. Demand factor wasn't specified. Okay, so you can use any of the Egypt. Okay, so I use population. Okay, and an increase in world population will lead to higher demand for food. Okay, so you can relate it to upward pressure on price. So I want you all to focus on PAP here. Okay, a simplified one. Okay, this is not new. Okay, but still a lot of students are missing that out. Okay, so you got to illustrate the upward price adjustment process. Okay, so you realize that it's very systematic. One factor, okay, relating it to the direction of demand, okay, relating it to a shortage and upward pressure on price. The question already say rise in price. All right, so the next one that you can consider is record costs, okay, and crop problems. You can see that, okay, record costs and crop problems. Some of y'all relate crop problems to W. I would accept that. Okay, if not, okay, I would think I would be more appropriate. Okay, you can see that record cost tells you that, okay, fertilizers and seedlings, okay, to grow the crops are, going to drive up cost of production. So remember, when you illustrate, of course, you need to relate to the extract. Of course. We must use extract, must use extract. Okay, so when you relate to supply factors, there is a good chance that you will be using COP. Okay, so I want you all to check whether COP is present in your answer. If it is not, put a star, okay, bullies or whatever. Okay, very important. There are some students that left this out. Okay, cost of production. So this will lead to a shortage and upward pressure on price. Someone also mentioned that price of related goods. Yes, okay, that's a very good point. Okay, so if you bring up price of related goods, you can illustrate the concept of competitive in supply. Okay, so you can see that food and biofuel are competing on the same resource, okay, such as land, right? Okay, and when we are pursuing more biofuel, there will be lesser food crops to be grown, and this will cause a fall in supply and an upward pressure on price. Okay, so the keyword here is competitive in supply. So as we can see, okay, supply factors are more, they are more visible here. Okay, so I'm going to create an exception. Okay, if you use both supply factors, I'm going to give it right. So if you use one demand and one supply factor, listen carefully. Combine your diagrams. Okay, please don't draw separate diagrams. Okay, I'm not going to give you the full credit if you split up your diagram. Okay, because the last mark, okay, the question only necessitates one diagram. Okay, not two diagrams. Alright, if you have any questions, okay, please type it out, okay, so that I can address them. If you have any alternate illustrations, likewise do the same. Okay, I'll be happy to clear them. Okay, or we can vote whether this answer is accepted. Okay, so far so good, everyone. Are you all with me? Okay, How so far promising? Or not so promising? Or too early to tell? Okay, let me know privately. Now, okay, question C. Okay, question C is the fun part. And actually, questions like question C will actually polarize, okay, the good students and the not so, or rather the students that actually are not conceptually strong. And I will show in a short while why is that so. So these are what we call foundation questions. Okay, B and C are so-called foundation questions. So what is the concept that is tested in part C? Type it out. Please don't type total revenue. Total revenue is already in the question. So what concept is behind total revenue? That's what that's what you need to. Okay, so we have government policy, tax and subsidy. So this is what we call wet pigs. Okay, G, and total revenue. Yeah, so far from what I see, only one of you all managed to deduce the concept, okay, behind total revenue. Okay, so let's try. Okay, so Nat, well done. What about the rest? What is the concept that is behind total revenue? I've mentioned this a lot of times, okay, especially in my first year program. Elijah, okay, only one of them is right. You have to pick one, not both. Okay, so the concept behind total revenue is price elasticity of demand. Yeah, and you'll be surprised, right? Why? How would price elasticity of demand come into the picture? Okay, so if you did not use price elasticity of demand, I would recommend you to catch up with PED and PES lessons that I've shot. Okay, I'm not sure is it part 1 or part 2, but okay, it's good to review both of them as a recap. Yeah, and you'll realize that okay, why PED is so important here. Okay, so like I've said, this is a lecture test. I have no intention to go excessively into content or concept illustration. Okay, so my best advice to you, if you didn't identify PED, is review the J1 PED and PES series. Now, okay, so first of all, we know that wet pigs, right? Removal of biofuel wet pigs. In this case, when you remove a biofuel subsidy, it works like a tax. Agreed? Okay, and this will drive up your production cost or cost of production. So keyword here. Okay, production cost will be driven up. So most of the students can identify this. However, wait 1 second. However, okay, so sorry, there was some interruption outside. Okay, if you didn't bring in PED, you cannot score the rest of the credit. And I'm going to show you why is that so. Okay, so first of all, okay, for those who bring in PED, good. Okay, so you got to justify why, or rather you have to justify the magnitude of your PED. Okay, so biofuel, okay, is price demand elastic. And why is it price demand elastic? Okay, so you can use substitutes. Yeah. And you can see that when there's a rise in price of biofuel, okay, this will lead to a more than proportional fall in quantity demanded for biofuel. So this is a key phrase. And the total revenue for biofuel product producers will fall. Okay, so if you did not make assumption for demand, okay, you're not going to get the remaining 3 credits. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly illustrate, okay, for the for students who cannot visualize this. This is how it looks like. You may want to join me in drawing this. Yep, so you can see that this is a fall in supply. There is no need for PES here. Okay, and we have to hold your demand price elastic. It has to be flat. Okay, and we can see that. Okay, this is the original equilibrium price and quantity with a fall in supply. Okay, the increase in price will lead to a more than proportional fall in quantity demanded. Do you see that? Okay, and I will just box this up. Okay, this is your initial total revenue. Okay, that's boxed in black. Okay, so with an increase, okay, in price, your total revenue will decrease to the box in green. Okay, for you to visualize this. Yeah, so the concept of price elasticity must be used. So whenever you look out, when you see questions that tell you total expenditure or total revenue, okay, so let me repeat. Okay, TE or TR based questions, and when it's paired with web pigs, okay, when you see this combination, you have to deduce PED directly. Okay. So unfortunately, most of the students did not get this right. Okay, so if you get this right, congratulations. Okay, you are actually slightly ahead. Okay, if you did not get this right, okay, it does not mean that it's the end of the world. It means that you still can buck up. Okay, but you need to spend more time in the first year programs. Okay, can I move on? Good. Alright, so now let's move on to D1, D2, D3. You realize that cumulatively all these are testing on market failure, right? Okay, so the first part, D1, we are looking at causes of market failure. And in fact, they already tell you negative externality. Okay, so later on, I will show you what are some of the common issues for D1 and how to better utilize or how to better contextualize with respect to the question. Okay, D2. Okay, can you all tell me, okay, what is emission trading? Better known as. How is it illustrated in your school notes? What is emission trading? Okay, good, Nat. So sorry. I apologize. What about the rest? What is emission trading? I haven't heard from all of you. Not sure, don't know. Tradable permits, So if you cannot deduce that this is tradable permits, you probably won't get a credit. Okay, so you have to deduce that this is tradable permits. Okay, so later on, okay, I'll go on to illustrate, okay, what is behind, what do you need to bring in tradable permits. So remember, okay, the keyword here is actually trading, right? So the closest that you can draw reference to is tradable permits. No other policies will have the word trade. Okay, don't believe, go and check. Okay, and D part 3, we are testing on carbon tax and regulation. Okay, so later on, I will go on to illustrate, okay, carbon tax and regulation. Okay, what are the key terms that you need to bring in? Yeah, I apologize earlier on if the dog has barked. Was it quite loud? Was it loud? Especially those on earpiece. Yeah, I reckon that it's really loud. Okay, and can go straight to your eardrum. I'm so sorry. Well, that's a hazard of working from home, right? Okay, but that's also a blessing. But anyway, okay, sorry for digressing. Alright, so D1, okay, we are testing you on externality framework. Okay, very straightforward. Okay, so we have gone through the externality framework in the holiday program. So I have no interest to go into the content part, right? I just want you all to check whether the 6-step frameworks are there. Okay, if any of them are not there, okay, or are missing, I want you all to do the correction. And if a lot of the steps are not there, please turn up for my J1 Market Failure series. Alright, especially those who haven't been with me since last year. So with this, okay, I'm going to kickstart. Okay, common mistake for step 1. Okay, step 1 requires you to define and identify what is, okay, the cause of market failure. So negative externality is being shown in the question. So it's a definition that is missing. Right? So for definition, you have to eliminate consumer. Okay, I would reject any answers that bring in producers and consumers or slash consumers. Why is this important? You can see here. Okay, they already ask you to reference to the extract. And the extract, if you read carefully, is all about carbon footprint, deforestation, high emission. All these are production-based negative externalities. So if you bring consumer here, okay, you will be penalized because you are not contextualizing, right? So especially, I know some of you here will definitely bring in consumer here. So I just want you all to be extra mindful in a case study. Make sure you work your definition towards contextualization. Clear? So the next part that you want to consider is the external cost. Okay, what is the external cost here? Okay, so step 2. So step 2, you can see that in extract 2, the pursuit of biofuel encourages deforestation, resulting in carbon footprint and carbon emission, and this leads to global warming and environmental concerns, third-party costs to others. Alright? So remember to use the extract, okay, to help support what is external cost. Okay, alternatively, you can look at the last extract. Okay, you can look at power plants and high emission sectors. Okay, that is also accepted. So you can either take the perspective of a biofuel producer, okay, or a power plant, okay, in this illustration. Okay, so step 3, strangely, a lot of students are still missing. Okay, rational decision-making framework. For those who brought this up, okay, they often fail to illustrate this key concept. Okay, producers will produce up to MPB equals to MPC for what? Okay, to maximize profit. Maybe I should muzzle my dog, but anyway. Please don't report me to the animal authorities. Okay, the MPC, okay, denotes what? Okay, the monetary and opportunity cost of producing an additional unit of biofuel. So it has to be consistent. If you pick biofuel here, okay, then it has to be biofuel. So if you use a good, it's not good enough. Okay, and most of the students did not, okay, contextualize. Okay, I will minus mark for that. Okay, so remember, try your best to contextualize. If you use power plant or high emission producers, then you can talk about, okay, energy, utility down here. Okay, MPB will denote the revenue from selling an additional unit of biofuel or utility. So this is step 3. Step 4 refers to a diagram. So I just want you all to focus on the diagram. When you look at D1 and D3, okay, they uses the same diagram. So a lot of students are repeating their diagrams. And you realize that once you draw a same diagram, it's going to set you back in your answer. I want you all to check. Okay, if you have drawn a same diagram, you want to ask yourself, is there a way I can utilize or recycle an old diagram? Or is there a need to draw a new diagram? Okay, always question yourself. Every diagrams that you use, okay, is either going to help you to shorten your answer or it must give you a mark. Okay? So step 5, okay, most of the students get this right. Okay, you want to illustrate that the presence of the external cost will drive a divergence between your social and private costs, and this will lead to a overproduction. So the keyword here is overproduction and divergence of your cost curve. Step 5. Okay, and step 6, I start to see that a lot of students are doing better now. Okay, they start to appreciate how dead weight loss arise. So dead weight loss arise when your society welfare is not maximized, and in this case, okay, your marginal social cost exceeds your marginal social benefit. So you got to explain the significance of this. For every additional unit of biofuel produced or utility produced, the society incurs a greater cost as compared to the benefit that they gain. So this is what you want to use to illustrate dead weight loss. So check these 6 steps here. Okay, and you want to make an extra emphasis on contextualization. Okay, anyone that use any consumer terms that use here, I will minus marks straight away. Okay, you make my life a lot more easier when you talk about consumer. Okay, I'll just minus marks. Oh, everyone good so far? Scored the full credit here. So how is it looking for all of you? Promising? Okay, or disastrous? Maybe you let me know privately. Okay, so I'm going to move on to D part 2. Alright, D part 2. Hey, a lot of students actually illustrate the quota diagram. Okay, so using the quota diagram does not illustrate or does not show how carbon emission can be reduced directly if you do not illustrate, okay, who constitutes to the demand and who constitutes to the supply, or to be more specific, the economic agents that are involved. Okay, so first of all, you need to identify that the key concept that's present here is tradable permits. And when we look at tradable permits, there are always 3 economic agents, okay, in place. Number 1, okay, please pen this down. Okay, this is a very quick summary on tradable permits. Okay, we want to look at government. The role of government is to issue the permits. Okay, so the permits can be issued for free or it could be auctioned to the firms. So government will release the permits, okay, in order for firms to emit carbon emission. Okay, without the permit, you cannot. So the next thing is you have to illustrate the profile of the firms. Okay, which results here. Okay, you can see that who is going to provide the permits and who is going to demand for the permits. Okay, so you can actually see that firms which are relatively efficient in their production, okay, they will require lesser permits, right? Okay, so clean firms. Okay, so clean firms, okay, they have an incentive to sell off their permits for economic profit. And who is going to buy the permits? Okay, dirty firms or inefficient firms that require more permits. Okay, and I'm going to show you how you're going to illustrate this. Okay, so first of all, you got to illustrate who requires more permits. Okay, companies or firms with poor or inefficient production means will demand for more carbon pollution permits. Likewise, clean firms will supply the inefficient firms with excess carbon pollution permits because they don't need that much. Okay, and in return, they can gain extra income or economic profit. Alright, someone mentioned never use extract for a lot of the questions. So remember, okay, looking at the question alone is not good enough. Okay, so once you deduce the concepts, then you screen the extract, okay, for the concepts that are tested. So never start from the front to the back. Yeah, from the back to the front, deduce the concepts, try to find the concepts from the extract. Okay, this is how you utilize them. Okay, now let's hop back to here. Explain clean firms. Yep. Okay, so these are the firms that are going to supply the excessive permits. Okay, so there's a trading element. Okay, one buy and one sell. Okay, so you have to illustrate there's a trading element here. So you can see that, okay, with tradable permits, this incentivizes firms to adopt cleaner production, right? Okay, because they are able to sell their excessive permits for economic profit, and this actually penalizes the firms, okay, because they have to, okay, spend more resource to acquire tradable permits. Okay, so this will lead to a fall in, okay, carbon emission in the long run. Okay, so it's the incentivizing and penalizing, okay, mechanism that you need to use here. Alright, I am going to rush through the last question. So sorry, lecture tests are always like that. Okay, 4:15, I try to end by 4:15. Okay, if there's an urgent need to rush, okay, or to go, okay, I'll attach the answer key right now. Okay, so do your own corrections. I do know that some of you have other classes that are planned out after this. Okay, so let me drop it in the chat box first, chat log first. Okay, so check your chat. Okay, the answer key should be up. Okay, so later on your submission for or rather you already submitted your lecture test. There's no time, there's no deadline for that. So sorry, okay, no need to ignore what I've said. Okay, so carbon tax and regulation. Okay, which one is a better policy to address the market failure? So the problem lies with common problems that are observed here. Number one, okay, people are not finishing. So they give me a very good time because, okay, I don't need to mark a lot. Okay, I just need to mark one policy. Sometimes it's even blank. Okay, so problem number two is regulation. Okay, some of the students, okay, misinterpret regulation as a quota. Okay, regulation and quota are two different concepts. Alright, so I will show you in a short while, okay, what do we need to use for regulation? What are the key terms that we need to use for regulation? Okay, and remember to insert a limitation. For those who attempted this question, or for those who managed to illustrate at least one policy, okay, limitations, I think I saw some of that, which is not bad. Okay, so with this, let's kickstart, okay, and finish strong. I hope I can end by 4:15. Okay, so the government has many tools to regulate or to correct a market failure. Then there are carbon tax or regulation. So you're supposed to weigh out which is a better policy. Okay, you can see that regulation involves direct interventions to regulate the market. Okay, or what we call command and control. Okay, so check your school notes. Some of your school notes will label this as command and control policies. Okay, whereas a carbon tax is a market-oriented policy. Okay, it is a per unit tax, okay, that's imposed on producers. Now let's look out for regulation. Okay, regulation and quota are different. Okay, quota is a fixed production. Okay, whereas for regulation there is penalty involved. Okay, for non-conformation. Okay, so this is the difference between the two. Okay, they are not the same. So another issue when students bring in regulation is they not cite the extract. Okay, so once you are familiar with regulation, you know that there's a penalty involved. Okay, there are rules to follow. Then you want to screen the extract. Or what are the rules that are there? Okay, compulsory shutdown of high emission factories. Okay, and when you shut them down, this will reduce your carbon emissions significantly and correct the market failure. Okay, your external costs will be lower. Okay, similarly, by restricting investments into high emission sector, okay, this actually sends a signal to producers that, okay, low emission production is preferred. If not, okay, you'll be banned from producing. Next, you want to look out for the limitation. Okay, so what is a constraint of regulation? So we can see that regulation often may result in non-conformity. It simply means that producers may not follow. Why? Okay, you can see that especially for regulations that are costly to administer. Okay, you need manpower to regularly inspect the power plants. You need manpower to check on the forest, make sure that there is no massive deforestation, right? Sometimes it's hard, because probably the country is sufficiently big. Therefore, it's hard to enforce. Okay, when it's hard to enforce, your regulations will not be effective. Okay, so you want to talk about this. Alright, so I want you all to check carbon tax. Carbon tax, there's a standard approach. Okay, so there are a few key terms that you need to illustrate. Number one, always start off with carbon tax that is equivalent to the external cost. Okay, so some of the students ask me, Mr. Teo, why must we make this assumption that a carbon tax that is equivalent to the external cost? It ties in nicely with your limitation. Some of y'all may bring in your limitation that info failure, right? Okay, when the government is not able to estimate the level of external costs, this will lead to over or under production. Okay, so we have to make the assumption that the government is able to tax perfectly at MEC. Then we can drive up your production cost and cause your MPC curve to shift to the left. So this is what I mentioned, don't draw another diagram. See, all you need to is just a reference to the earlier figure, and insert one more line. And it can save you so much pain and so much time. So check your diagram. If you are diagram spamming, it's also not a good sign. So you can cause industrial emitters or the biofuel producers to internalize the external costs. And this will reduce your production to the socially optimal level. So the key word here is this. Market-oriented policies are revolved or they are obsessed with holding the producers or consumers accountable, internalizing. So check this keyword. I'm going to move on to a limitation. You want to talk about a constraint of this. So you can consider emitters like power plants are less sensitive to tax. Why? Because the demand of the good is price demand inelastic. So they can simply pass off the tax burdens to the consumers. Alright, so this is, someone mentioned, do we need to mention cost pass on to, so this is a production-based negative externality. So no need to talk about consumers under the body paragraph. Evaluation you can though. So you can also talk about there is an unintended consequence. When you impose a tax on utilities, this will drive up utility costs. Cost of living will go up. And this will lead to inequity. Especially for low income earners. Or you could stick to our usual approach of info failure. The government may not know what is the optimal amount to tax, may not know the exact level of MEC. And what happens when you over or under tax? That is also accepted. So synthesis, someone mentioned synthesis is hard to construct. Right? So listen carefully. For synthesis, you have to weigh out between the two policies. Which one do you think is better and why? So most of the students tell me combination of policies should be adopted. But why again? That's a big question mark. No one can explain that. So I want you all to observe. So when you propose a combination, sure. Then you want to justify, which one do you think is better? A heavier emphasis on carbon tax. Why is carbon tax more superior? Number one, you can see that regulation is a very blunt tool. Okay, blunt means that it actually affects all producers. And tax revenue can have an unintended benefit of tax collection. And can we better utilize the tax collection for other means? We could, right? Maybe you can subsidize cleaner production means. And this could possibly lower your negative externality of production. So there is a need to justify which is better and why. Okay? So with this, I don't think I have much issue. Most of the students did not finish this, so I have not much to value add. Alright? So I am going to proceed on to a Q&A session. So if you have questions for me, please let me know. For the viewers out there who are not participating in my actual class, you can leave me a comment or you can WhatsApp me, if you have my number. Alright? So with this, I'm going to stop recording.